this is Dave, an official PlayStation magazine. I'm here with Bruce Straley, who's the game director on The Last of Us. It's an incredible looking game. Do you think you push PS3 to its technical limit now, and are you looking, like as a developer, are you looking forward to what PS4 will allow you to do as storytellers?
Yeah, I think that we can officially say PlayStation 3 was awesome, you know, and we've pushed it. We squeezed blood out of the turnip, and it's been a fun ride. If it weren't for the Uncharted engine and starting with that as the foundation, we couldn't do what we've done with The Last of Us and create the new IP and with the new characters that we have. So, you know, that's been an amazing leg up, and next gen is going to be really fun, and it's going to afford us a lot of opportunities. But that's neither here nor there. I'm excited just to have this game out. Blinders are on right now. We're just peeling them off, going like, what's reality? Like, I don't like. So next gen's next gen. That's not even here yet.
The violence in the game is stern, to say the least, but it all feels in service of the story. One topic you particularly cover in the game is the subject, like children being put in like very violent situations. Was that like a taboo you want to cover as story makers, or was it just something that developed naturally while you were making the game and the story?
It just developed naturally. It was what the story needed. I mean, we needed to raise the stakes, and we needed to put lives in jeopardy and have it be meaningful. And the brutality serves that purpose, that it is handled with a certain amount of care, in that yes, it can be horrific, and yes, it can be brutal, but at the same time, I have to understand that can happen to me, that can happen to Ellie, that can happen to Joel. And because I've experienced that, again, it puts the player in the position of like surviving and doing what you have to do to get through the next scenario. So the brutality and the violence is really there to. It's an interesting thing, because games don't make you often think about the choices that you're making as an active participant. And Joel, with this world of kind of ambiguous moral lines, Joel's kind of a dirty person by our average standards of getting coffee in the morning and going to work and, like, you know, going on dates in the evening. It's like, this guy's having to murder in order to survive and keep the people around him alive. And so when I have to participate in that in order to get through a scenario, I'm faced with that dilemma myself, and I have that same feeling, and I have that empathy in a way, that compassion in a weird way, you know. But games are the things that allow and avail that sense of guilt that movies and novels don't have the opportunity to really explore. As far as children and violence, the world that we've created, it's again not trying to do something taboo or groundbreaking. It was something that, because of the world, this is the reality of the world, and we needed to. We've handled it all in a very mature manner. I think these are real situations that you can believe in, and that affords, again, the characters to create really interesting decisions, because the stakes are so high. And then when these emotions of these two characters, which are so sort of bipolar opposite at the beginning, with Joel sort of emotionally shut down from what he's had to experience being born pre-pandemic, and Ellie born post-pandemic, it's like, well, the military have been killing people daily, you know, we're just stealing rations, and like that's Wednesday for her. So it's like seeing those two perspectives put together, and it's like an opportunity for us to truly explore like the human condition.
You talked about Joel being required to murder in The Last of Us. Going forward as storytellers on PS4, do you think it might become more challenging to like ground stories when, like, games that require a lot of combat where you're killing hundreds of people, and as storytelling techniques become more sophisticated with full body motion capture, do you think those two elements could be at odds with each other when you're killing hundreds of people but you're trying to tell quite intimate personal stories? Could that be a challenge going forward?
I think the game developers just have to look at like what they're making and be true to sort of their vision of what they're trying to do, and be proud of what they're doing. I don't think that there's a right or wrong in like how games are necessarily supposed to be. Not every game has to come away with some catharsis or some sort of like epiphany about the human condition. I mean, we played with a lot of deep philosophical kind of concepts, but it really honestly all we're trying to do is tell like a really compelling story. And I think that all game developers should just look at like what they're doing and say like, okay, how do I own what I'm doing and try to make it the best thing possible and be proud of what I'm doing. And that's really, I mean, there's no, Joel is what he is because the story needed him to be that way, and Ellie is who she is so that we could put her next to Joel and like watch the two and the dynamic like percolate and bubble and see what happens to them and see them transform each other, so that by the end of this great journey, I've been with them the whole time, and when I see that they are truly different characters from when I started, and I'm as invested as they are in each other, and one of the things that you need for survival, there's a bond there, but it's a trust. You have to have trust. I have to know that the person that I'm with has my back and that I'll have theirs. And that's truly where you want to get, and that's a love that comes out of that I think you can only experience through what they've had to go through. So other games kind of have to look at what they're doing and just go like, okay, because you can still make games that are just fun. And you can make characters that are just kind of fun to be around and like engaging, and there's no right or wrong to this thing, and the medium is still in its infancy. There's so many opportunities, and I just want to like implore all developers just to say like, what's in your gut, what do you want to play, and like try to make that game and stick to that.
In The Last of Us, it seems there's a really lovely balance between intense moments of violence during combat and really lovely like quiet moments of ambience where the characters like Joel and Ellie are just talking to each other and like really interacting as characters. How conscious are you, our developer, are balancing those moments of violence with moments of really letting the player reflect and what their actions and having downtime?
I think the thing that we try to do at Naughty Dog with all our games is really like nail the pacing. And the pacing is really about trying to use your core systems to create a rhythm. And once you create that rhythm, then the idea is like, don't get into the rut where the player can expect what's going to happen next. And that rhythm becomes sort of like this mundane, redundant sort of rhythm. You want it to be established long enough that I understand it so that when it changes, you see a shift and a contrast. And with that creates good pacing because you're always keeping the player on their toes, and you want to see what's around the next corner, whether that be like a new environment or a new enemy or the way the enemy is introduced, how many items you find inside of an environment, how you're going to use them, and the pacing of like trying to contrast. This game really plays with contrast between the characters we've created, Joel and Ellie, the environments where they're beautiful and lush yet abandoned and kind of desolate because it's the familiar and the unfamiliar, and the contrast of like moments like you're trying not to describe or give away too much, which it's only because of the tension and it's only because of the darkness that we are able to go in the story and the reality that the pressures and the situations that we've put these characters into, that allows us the opportunity to see the lightness in other, that contrast really shifts, and it makes those moments stand out even more and makes them very precious. If everything were just one note, if everything is a dark corridor and people think creatures are jumping out at you, then it becomes, oh, I'm just going to pull this lever and something's going to jump out at me again. Okay. But then if you start playing with the idea of like you're allowed to have beauty, and you're allowed to have horror while beauty exists, and that is kind of life. It's like you're allowed to have bipolar, like what would seem completely opposing forces together, and that creates a beautiful harmony. And that's I'm kind of talking a little philosophical here and theory craft and whatnot, but truly like these are the ideas we get to play with inside of the game. And I think that you've touched on something, which is, and all that's in gameplay, the fact that that's all on the joystick, that moment that you're talking about, and saying like, I've experienced such horror, and now while I'm on the joystick, things are happening with the core mechanics and this scenario that's playing out before me, and I'm a part of it, and I'm crying, and that's an awesome feeling.
I almost cried, yeah. I was very close to tears.
Almost.